A Christmas Carol is a literary name that should ring familiar in a lot of people. Charles Dickens' tale of an embittered miser and his disdain for all things Christmas is one that has unequivocally been embedded into that time of the year. Despite being around for over a century, the story remains much beloved and a source of inspiration for Christmas-centered works, some of which do the material justice and some that bastardize it. Mickey's Christmas Carol is one of the many adaptations of the classic tale. This featurette was released in a time where Mickey Mouse was an afterthought in the animation world. Since the release of The Simple Things in 1953, Mickey never regained his footing as a cartoon character, despite attempt after attempt by Disney to reinvigorate him. But there's only so much that can be done with the everyman archetype, which Mickey embodies to a fault. That's never stopped Disney before though, and lo and behold, here we are. This was to be Mickey's triumphant return to the silver screen, his big comeback, his renaissance, his Robert Downey Jr. moment. And meh. It's not a bad cartoon, don't be mistaken. It's faithful to Charles Dickens' novella, and for an adaptation, that's important. It does the original story justice, which I can't say about some slapdash garbage fire Christmas movies. And the classic Disney characters playing the roles of Dickens' characters is a nifty novelty in the first few viewings of the cartoon. But I'm not 100% sold on the whole thing. First of all, is the misleading title. Do not let it fool you. Mickey is not the protagonist of this cartoon. It's Scrooge McDuck, who just by looking at his name is Ebenezer Scrooge. I mean, where do you think the guy got his name from? On the other hand, Mickey is the destitute, overworked, and underpaid Bob Cratchit. It wouldn't have made sense to substitute Mickey's name for Scrooge's in the title. For one thing, Mickey is a far more well-known character than Scrooge, and DuckTales had not come out on TV yet, which means that all Scrooge had to his name were his comics. And for another, giving a greedy old coot top billing was most likely an idea that Disney wasn't too keen on. I get that, but I'm still not a fan of it. No matter how much you want to spin it, it's still false advertising. Not unlike how Disney did it for some of their classic shorts back then, where Mickey got top billing despite not appearing in them at all. The second thing I want to bring up is that the cartoon's faithfulness can work against it. A few liberties aside, this is a point-for-point recreation of the classic 19th century novella, with characterization and story beats unchanged during the transition to an audiovisual medium. To be frank with you, it's pretty derivative and safe even by the standards of Mickey Mouse. It must be a sign of the times, seeing as this cartoon was released in the 1980s, where animation was defined less by its artistry and more by its profitability. If Disney was really intent on ushering Mickey's renaissance, they should have saved his return for a ballsier tale like Runaway Brain. Ah well. That's just wishful thinking. The animation itself's not much to write home about, really. I guess it's good in that it doesn't recycle scenes over and over like some Disney movies from the last 2 decades did. That's the best I can say about the animation. Cause the thing is, it never struck me as noteworthy. Just there. I can't complain about it too much, nor praise it too much. The company had yet to hit its highs like those from the Renaissance era. But let's not be too negative here. Why don't we see the good that Mickey's Christmas Carol has done? Not to contradict my issue with the cartoon's derivation, but the classic Disney characters generally play the roles well. Scrooge McDuck as Ebenezer Scrooge is a certified winner. Mickey as Bob Cratchit gives us some heartwarming and heart-rending moments. Goofy as Jacob Marley is the best of both worlds, through the former's antics and the latter's penitence for his past, and so on and so forth. I guess I can talk about the trivia circling this feature. I did say that Mickey's Christmas Carol is an adaptation of Charles Dickens' A Christmas Carol, but there's more to it than that. The cartoon was also based on an audio musical by Disneyland Records that was released in 1974 called Dickens' Christmas Carol. It had the same novel concept of classic Disney characters playing the roles of Dickens' characters and virtually the same content as its animated counterpart. The only difference is that the ghosts of Christmas past and future were played by different characters, the former being played by Merlin from The Sword in the Stone, and the latter by the evil queen from Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs. Also worth bringing up is that, not counting the obscure Scrooge McDuck and Money educational short, this cartoon marks the debut of Scrooge McDuck in an animated format. It would have been his television debut too, but a writer's strike in the 80s put a halt to those plans. Instead, the cartoon was released as a tie-in to a reissue of The Rescuers. Well, in the United States anyway. In other places like the United Kingdom, it was a tie-in to a reissue of the Jungle Book, released in October. Why? The next pieces of trivia are voice acting related. Mickey's Christmas Carol marks 3 major debuts and 1 major retirement. This is the debut of Alan Young as Scrooge McDuck, Wayne Allwine as Mickey Mouse, and Tony Anselmo as Donald Duck. Tony Anselmo's debut, however, came with a price, as this is also the last voiceover appearance of Clarence Nash, Donald Duck's original voice actor. And poor guy. Must have been hard on him to do voiceover work at the age he was at. If you listen to Donald in the cartoon, you can tell that Clarence Nash's age was starting to show. Tony Anselmo basically had to fill in the holes that Nash left during this cartoon. And it's even sadder thinking about this after the fact, since Nash passed away from leukemia 2 years later. And more so today, now that Wayne Allwine and Alan Young are no longer with us either. It's a fascinating thing to think about, huh? Mickey's Christmas Carol might not be the launchpad for a Mickey Mouse renaissance that Disney wanted it to be, but it was still something of an introduction to Mickey's and Disney's identities going into the turn of the century. Don't you just love it how things seem to work out well in the end? Mickey's Christmas Carol is a strange little package, to say the least. It combines the appeal of both the classic Disney characters and Charles Dickens' much-loved story to sound effect, but still remains essentially derivative in spite of making a few small changes. Generally, it's a successful venture for Disney, but not really enough to guarantee a renewed interest in Mickey Mouse, especially not with the blatant false marketing and resting on Mickey's everyman laurels. Despite not being the runaway hit that Disney wanted it to be, it still played a bigger picture role of a different kind, giving Mickey, Scrooge, and Donald voices that would last them generations to come. Sorta like a Christmas present that you wind up using for a very long time. And that's about it. Until next time, I'm the one and only C.R. Martin, and stay safe everybody. Merry Christmas!
Thank you, Merry Christmas. Thank you, Merry Christmas. Thank you, Merry Christmas.